Hello everyone. So I'm back with the next video on the topic functions, and here we will be learning about domain and range. It is an extremely important topic, so please do watch the video till end. I want you to understand everything. So have patience and pay attention. So domain is the set of all the input values of the function. And range is the set of all the output values of the function. This is the definition. Let's try to understand it with the help of the following examples. So generally we denote the input by X and we denote the output by Y. So I'm going to use the same variables, and in the mapping diagrams on the left side we always have the input, and on the right side we have the output, that is the function. So in this example you can clearly see that what are all the input values? These are 0, 1 and 2. That means here your domain is going to be what? It is going to be a set of all the input values. That means you are going to write it like this. So domain is nothing but you write all the input values together and you put them in these braces. These are called the curly braces. So make sure you put your domain inside it. Now, similarly, if we talk about the range, as I said before, range is the set of all the output values. So what are all the output values in this function? It's 0, -1 and -2. So that means your range is going to be 0, -1, -2, and again we place them inside these braces. So that's all in domain and range. This is the basic. Now, if we see in the next example, example number 2, here you can see that in the domain, we are going to have again all the input values. That means we will have P, Q, R, and S. This is our domain. And if we see the range, then we will need to see the output values. So that would be 10, 20, 30, 40, and 60. Clearly you can see this is a relation, this is not a function here, because one input is having multiple outputs. But we are just now learning that how to write the domain and range. But yes, this is not a function here. These are the domain and range of a relation. Now if we see example number 3, in this the domain is going to be 1, 2, 3 and 4. That is the set of all the input values, and the range is going to be just P, because you can see here we have only one output. All the inputs are having the same output, that's P. So this is going to be a range. In example number 4, the inputs are 5, 10 and 15. So the domain is going to be the collection of all these inputs together. So this is your input. Here you can see the outputs are 7, 12 and 17. So that means here the range would be this. So that's all in domain and range. In the basics, we are going to do more type of questions. So let's see this one. Here I have represented the relations with the help of input-output table. So if we see in the very first example of question number 5, the domain is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8. And the range will be 4, 6, 8 and 10. In the next example, your domain is going to be 3 and 5, although it's occurring 4 times, right? 3 is occurring 2 times and 5 is occurring also 2 times, but make sure you only write it once. So your domain is 3, 5 and your range is here 1, 2, 3 and 4, and this is again not a function. We have actually done all these examples when we were studying functions and the very first video, but yeah, I'm using the same examples to explain to you what is domain and range of any function. Now in this example we can see here the domain is 5, 10 and 15 all together. So this is your domain and your range is just going to be 7. Now we are going to see the last two examples, okay? So here you can see the domain is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have only one output for all these inputs, so your range is just going to be 8. And in this example, we have 8 as our domain, and range is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we have learned that how to find the domain and range of any relation or function. Now we are going to see that how to do it graphically. So here all the graphs that are given to you are of functions, and we have to identify that what would be the domain and range here. So to find the domain, all you need to do is see the x-axis, because we know that the input is always shown on the x-axis and domain means the input, right? So that means for domain, you will look at the axis and you will see that from where to where the graph of the function is going on the x-axis. So if you see, the extreme left point is at -4 and the extreme right point of this graph is at +4 from here to here. So this is going to be your domain. So how can you write this? So domain, I have taught you about intervals, right? Because here we cannot write 1, -4, -3, -2, right? That does not make sense because there are numbers between -4 and -3. There would be infinite numbers. We also have to include those in our domain because it is a continuous graph. It will take all the values between -4 to 4, whether those are decimal numbers, fractions, right? All the numbers that comes in between. So we have done intervals in the previous video. So we already know that how we can represent this. We can represent it by using the open interval here. But again, remember there is a mistake. We will not use the open interval. You can see here that on one end it is closed. If you remember open and closed intervals, if you do not, please do watch my previous video. The topic is intervals. Only then you will be able to understand this. So you can see here that this end is closed here and this end is open. So you are going to put the same type of like brackets to in the interval notation. So we know that for a closed interval we have square brackets. That means it would be square bracket, and here the number is -4 and to +4. But on +4 there is a hollow circle. That means it's an open interval. Now, what does it mean? That your input can take any value that is greater than or equal to -4 and less than 4. All the numbers, and you know there are infinite numbers between this interval. Okay, so this is the actual meaning of -4 to 4 with these brackets here. So this is your domain. Now, if we talk about the range, you have to see that from where to where the graph is going on the y-axis. So if you see, it is going all the way from -10 to +6. That means here your range is going to be -10 to 6. Now again, with -10, you are going to put a closed bracket or a square bracket, and with 4 you are going to put a open parenthesis. So again it means what? That y, that is your output, can be any number that is greater than or equal to -10 and less than 6. So that is how we find the range, domain and range of any function graphically. Now let's see example number 2. Now, in example number 2, we are not having a continuous graph. You can see in the first example, the graph is continuous. It's not breaking at a single point. So such type of graph is called a continuous graph. Now, this is called a discrete graph where you have breaks in between. This is a discrete graph. So in case of discrete graph, we can individually find out, right? Separate, like we can clearly see here that what are the inputs and what are the outputs. So we will write the domain of the function not in interval notation. Here we will write it in curly braces like we were doing in the examples that we did above, because we are particularly aware of what are our inputs and outputs. So here if we see here, our input is -4. At this point our input is -3, right? So I'm going to write all the points: -4, -3, then here it is -2, then after that we have a point at x equals 1, then 2 and 4. So this is going to be our domain here. Okay. And when we talk about the range, we will see here that corresponding to -4, the output is -2. So this is our one output, -2. Then we also have 1 as output, then 2 as our output. So 1, 2, then we have 3 here, here we have 4, and here we have 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So these are our output values, and the collection of all these together will be called the range of the function. Let's see the next one now. In question number 3, again we have a continuous graph. So you can see here that one end is open and the other end is closed. So always see that. Now to find the domain, again we will follow the same process. We will see from where to where the x-axis is going on the graph. So you can see it's going all the way from -3 to +3. So I will write the domain is -3 to +3, and with -3 you have this open interval. That means I'll put this parenthesis, and with +3 you have this closed interval. So that means I'll write a square bracket here. Again I'm going to repeat, right? This is the interval notation. It is not going to be incorrect if you write it like this. You can also write it like x is greater than -3 and it is less than equal to 3. This is another way of representing the domain. Both are going to be correct. Now, if we talk about the range of this function, so again, please check from where to where the y-axis is going for the graph. So if we see here, let's plot it on the graph. It's going all the way from -5 to +1. That means this is going to be our range. So range is going to be -5. Since corresponding to -5 we have open interval, so I'm putting in open parenthesis here, and corresponding to 1 we have a closed interval. So this is going to be your range here. Again, you can write it in the form of an equation as y is greater than -5 and less than or equal to 1. It's closed on this side. Now let's see the last one here. Not the last one, the second last one. So here you can see the x-axis is going from -2 to +2. So here your domain is going to be -2, which is on the open side, so -2, and +2 is closed, so -2 to +2, like this. So this is your domain. And if we talk about the range, so I think you must be able to answer now. It's going all the way from -2 to +4. So that is going to be your range here. So for -2, now the question is that what type of parenthesis or bracket you are going to put. So you can see -2 is included in the range, right? So that means here it would be -2 to +4. Now, why I say that negative 2 is not having the open interval here? Because you can see this is the negative, right? It's starting from where this point is not included in the range. But when you go down, this negative 2 is very well included in the function. Your y would be anything greater than or equal to negative 2, right? And less than 4, less than or equal to 4. Here you need to focus, okay? Here, this is little different from the other questions because this point, the lowest point of this graph, is lying on the graph itself. That means here the function is having this value that is included. So that's why I have taken it to be included in the interval. Now, if we see the last one, here you can see both the ends are closed. So here, if both the ends are closed, you are going to put square brackets. So your domain would be what? Your domain is going to be from negative 3 to 7, positive 7. So that means your domain is negative 3 to 7. And if we talk about your range, then it is going all the way from negative 3 to positive 6. That means your range is negative 3 to 6. So that is all for this video. I will be continuing the next part of this video because it's getting too long. Where we will be doing some more questions on domain and range of the function. Thank you for watching.